Hello, welcome to Strikeout. It's a very quick game that I made, so I'll just teach you how to play, and hopefully you'll be able to better understand the rules. So let's get set up. So for every player playing in the game, you'll put in 8 cards into the deck. This is one of the most complex rules of the game. So for this example, we'll have 2 players. So we're going to go ahead and put 8 cards into the deck for every player that is in the game. So that is 16 cards because there are 2 players. Now, also, when setting up, you might want to go ahead and put your tokens, these cards, the double-sided cards, into an accessible location. We're just going to go ahead and put them there. And then next, we're going to pass out 5 cards to each player. And that's how you get set up. So now, I'm assuming if you're watching this video, you're trying to learn how to play the rule, or how the rules of this game work, and then you're going to go explain it to your friends if you want to play with them. So this very simple way of how to explain it to them, you just set everything up beforehand, and then you say, all right, the goal of the game is to be the last person with any cards in your hand. And if you ever have 0 cards in your hand, you lose the game, you're out of the game. On your turn, you can do one of 2 things. You can either play a card or draw a card. And you would draw a card from this deck over here. And you can only use your turn to draw a card up to 3 times per game. So that's what these pennies represent here. But you can leave out that detail until someone actually draws a card. I'll further explain that later. But for example, in this example game, we're going to have player 1 here. He's going to use one of his little pennies. He's going to use one of his 3 per game draws to not play a card on his turn, but just to draw a card. Player 2, on the other hand, is actually going to play a card. So they're going to go ahead and play animal. And this just goes to a communal discard pile. Animal adds 2 feces tokens to player 2's hand. Now, there are a limited amount of tokens outside of the game. If you ever run out, you can grab tokens from the discard pile. Or if there are none, you just can't grab it. You can't grab any. Although you could play where you can steal from other players' hands, the rules of this game are very malleable. If you would like to change up the rules, that's completely fine, as long as you are having fun. Because, there have been times where I just put the entire deck in. There are times where you only start with 2 cards because we wanted to play a quick game. Maybe you're not allowed to draw any cards. You can only play cards on your turn. The rules of this game are pretty up to interpretation. It's mostly in the cards that the complexity lies. So if you would like to change any of the rules or interpret cards in your own way, it's a lot easier to have fun and just go with the flow. This game is very smooth. It's very fluid. So, just relax with it. Now, speaking of, let's have player 1 here. It's his turn now. He's going to go ahead and play mill. So what mill does is discards the entire deck. Very simple card. So now that there's no cards in the deck, if you were to ever draw a card, and then you just can't. There's nothing to draw. And also, you cannot use your turn to draw a card. So these little pennies that represent 1 draw per turn, or 1 draw on your turn, you cannot use them unless there are cards in the deck. But since there is none, you must play a card. So now what player 2 is going to do is he's going to play love. Ooh, what does love do? Well, love makes all players discard their evil cards. Now, what are evil cards? Well, some cards will have types in their corners. Up here, these 2 cards are evil, so we'll discard them. as per Love's effect. And player 1, since it's all players, will also have to do the same. So there are several types of cards in this game. Evil, of course, is one of them. There are also reactions and holy cards, which we will get into later. But reactions, for example, player 1 will react to Love being played and will put this card face up on top of the deck. So Dud is a reaction, can be played in reaction to any card being played or in reaction to someone drawing a card from the deck. Player 1 reacted to Love with Dud. So now it is there. Now it is player 1's turn. Player 1 will decide to use their second draw of the game to get Dud back into their hand. Now, player 2 will decide to play Ruin and Renewal, which is this card right here. They will choose a player and they will discard one random card and draw a card. So what a random discard is that the player 2 who played it gets to choose a card from the other player's hand to discard. So normally when someone discards a card, they get to choose which card they discard. They get to make the decision for themselves, not the opponent. But in this case, the opponent gets to just take a card straight from their hand and discard it. The reason why tokens are double-sided is not just so you know how many tokens people have, but also because if you would like, you can avoid token cards. You can go for the normal cards, or you can go specifically for token cards if you would like. So this card, they will randomly pick this card to discard, and in reaction to this card being played, player 1 will once again play Dud. Now, the second part of this effect is Ruin and Renewal's effect is that the player draws a card. So player 1 will draw the card back into their hand. Now, what I just did there was pretty important. So currently, player 1 has 0 cards in their hand. So they should lose the game. However, because they still have to draw a card, they get the card back into their hand and they can still be in the game. Another example of this would be, let's say, where did I put it? Would be, let's say, Alert. So let's say this is your last card in your hand, but there's still cards in the deck. You can play the card even though you are at 0 cards in your hand. Since you are drawing a card, you still don't lose the game. You're still not out of the game. So that is a pretty important part of the game. That way you can be a little bit more risky. You can play cards. Even if it's your last card, you can still be in the game if you're able to draw cards from that effect. Now it is player 1's turn. There's this holy card, Flame. While it is in the discard pile, all players at the start of their turn discard a card. So now player 1 discards their card, and since they have no cards in their hand, they're not drawing any cards, they lose. And that means player 1 wins, or player 2 wins the game. But I should also explain holy cards, just because they are a little interesting. So regardless if they were played or discarded, as long as they are in the discard pile, they will have an effect. So for example, Flame is a holy card. So while it is in the discard pile, all players at the start of their turn discard a card, which is what killed player 1. There are other holy cards that I have not made into actual cards. Currently, I'm pretty sure there's just one, which is unfortunate because they can be pretty interesting. But yeah, that's how you play. Thanks for watching. It is a pretty simple game. Hopefully this clarified a lot of the niche rules. You don't have to follow them to a T, of course. It is definitely more of a party game, less of a, a very competitive game. It's very relaxed. If you're interested in this game and you don't have it already, you can go to gamecrafter.com and and just search up Strikeout. Uh, this is misspelled, by the way. It does have an R in it. Sorry about that. But yeah, if you're interested, you can buy it off of Game Crafter. I do have a lot of card ideas and a lot more game ideas, but I think I'm just gonna stop working on this project for now. Maybe I'll continue it later. I am having a friend make a few more cards for this game. These were all made by me, but they'll be able to hopefully make around 8 more cards for like a small expansion pack if you want to add in another player into the game. I think it'll be cool. They're very good at art, so hopefully it'll be better than this, you know. uh, yeah, that's about it. So have fun with this game if you decide to play.